Hello, this is Jennifer Martinez. In this video, we're going to find the equation of sine or cosine using a sine or cosine curve. So we're going to go backwards. If we have the curve, can we find the equation? So here is an equation of given in a homework problem, and we want to know if it's sine or cosine and what the exact equation is. So let's first start by remembering what sine or cosine look like. If I scroll down over here on the right, you will see that I graphed sine and cosine. Here's sine. Sine starts at 0, it goes up to 1, then at pi, that's pi, it goes to 0 again, and then over to 2 pi. For cosine, let me scroll down a little better, it starts at 1, goes to 0, -1, 0. If you remember, the period is 2 pi. Half of 2 pi is pi, so these half points are pi. The quarter points are pi over 2, and 3 pi over 2. So if we look at our graph, which one does this look closer to? Well, since it does not start at 0, I think it looks closer to cosine. Right? I do realize that this one starts at -4, and the cosine, the basic cosine, starts at 1. So we just have to adjust the amplitude for that. So let's talk about the amplitude. So A is considered, so we think it's going to be cosine. Let me write that down first. And A is considered the amplitude. The amplitude is how much it is stretched. So here, since it goes down to -4, and I'm assuming it continues here up to 4, the amplitude is going to be 4. So I'm actually going to call this the absolute value of A, because that's really the amplitude. The amplitude is 4, how much it's stretched. But the A is actually -4. The reason the A is -4 is because that's where the negative is going to come in, right? For when our normal cosine, if I scroll down again, was at 1, right? An amplitude of 4 would make it 4. But if we want to start at -4, the A has to be -4. So that's what the A is going to be. The B goes over the period. So let's talk about the period. So if I scroll down so I have more room, look at the same graph again. Oh, kind of got part of the wrong picture there. Okay, that looks a little better. We know that this is 1/4 of our cosine. So if I continue on with this pattern, see, I needed lots of room. It looks something like this. And each one of these little strips, so I guess I need to get even more. Each one of these little strips would be another 2 pi, because we're always dividing these up into 4. So if I do another strip, that's another 2 pi. Whoops, that would be a 4 pi. And we can continue down with this x-axis. That would be a 6 pi. And finally, the last strip would be an 8 pi. So to get a full cycle, you see the period is 8 pi. So I'm going to scroll back up and write the period. The period, we know, is 8 pi because of that. But that's not the B. B, we know the formula for the period is 2 pi over B. So we know 2 pi over B better equal 8 pi. So if I solve for B, I get 8 pi equals 2 pi over B. I could cross multiply and get 8 pi B equals 2 pi. Divide both sides by 8 pi. And finally, I get B is equal to, the pi's cancel, 2/8 or 1/4. So that is the B. So the formula for this equation would be y equals A, which is -4, cosine of 1/4 x. That is the answer to the graph of this equation. That has something, you see, of amplitude -4, and the period is 2 pi over 1/4 over the B, which turns out to be 8 pi, because that's 2 pi divided by 1/4, which is 2 pi times 4 over 1, which we know is 8 pi. So it does make sense. If you want to check this on a graphing calculator, what you're going to do is plug in y equals, I'm going to type in -4 times cosine of 1/4 x, so it's -4 cosine, and then we want 1/4 x, or you can say x over 4, x divided by 4. And then I'm going to make sure that my window is correct so we can see the values here. So if you notice here, the x goes from 0 to 2 pi. So I'm going to go to 0 to 2 pi. Let me move this up a little bit more. So that would be 0 is the min. The max, I'll go to this. I guess I'll go down and clear that and type in a 2 pi. Pi is, where is that? Shift. This little guy right there. There it is. And my scale, I guess it's every pi, so let's go down and type in, clear this, and type in a pi. My y min, I guess you could have done -10, but they had -6. So if we wanted to do -6, just to have what they had, and the y max, they have a 6. If we go to graph, you should get that same graph by typing -4 cosine of 1/4. We know that that is 2 pi because that's what we put as our max. If you wanted to see the whole, whoops, go back to window. If you wanted to see the whole period like I drew below on that second page, we can do this. What would we say the period was? 8 pi. Let's look at that again. We saw the period was 8 pi. So I could type here an 8 pi instead and enter. And then if I go to graph now, you know it's 8 pi. We better have a full period. We sure do. So that's how you can test it if you want to. If you happen to have a TI-84 is what I decided to use, graphing calculator. Hope that helps.